Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is the TikTok roundup and it is typically everyone's favorite time of the month. What we're going to do today is go through 11 videos that either came across my For You page or you sent over to me, and we are going to swipe right or swipe left on them. This is the format we did last month. Everyone seemed to really like it, so we're going to stick with it for now. Now, I am going to make this a lot easier on myself this month. Instead of you just writing in the comments which video you're voting for, we're going to have a poll on the community tab page instead. So before we jump into this month, we have to crown the winner from last video, which is number 7, May. I have to tell you, the C-section video was a very, very close second. But anyway, let's jump into this month's videos. So in case you could not read the text on the screen, it said, another beautiful day of not letting my knees go past my toes. I feel like you hear this a lot of people being afraid to bring their knees past their toes. And the best way that I explain it to them is that if you go up and down stairs every single day, your knees are already going past your toes. So ideally in your training, we want to train those ranges of motion and more if we have access to them to make sure that when we meet those ranges of motion under force in daily life, we don't injure ourselves. So the only time your knees shouldn't go past your toes is if you physically are not ready to control that range of motion. And that goes for literally any joint. Unsafe joint angles are simply the ones that you are not prepared for. So if you're somebody who has issues with deep knee flexion or a deep knee bend, here's what I would do. Like, let's say you were my client. Here's what I would do. I would first assess your mobility of the lower leg. So not just the knee, but I'd also look at the hip and the ankle. Quite often knee pain shows up because there's a limitation at a joint surrounding it. So just getting a better, fuller picture of what exactly is going on in the space that you have access to. If there is some sort of limitation in one of those joints, I would give you some corrective drills to not only create some more space in the joints, but also strengthen the end ranges. And then we're going to identify some pain-free ranges of motion, some different movement patterns that don't cause you pain, and work through those. Far too often when someone has pain, the remedy is just like, well, stop doing the thing that causes you pain. And then of course the pain stops. But you didn't fix anything, you just stopped doing the thing that was causing you pain. So anyway, I love this. We love a funny woman here. We're going to swipe right. Okay, I didn't realize there was no text on the screen, and you're probably watching that being like, what am I looking at? So essentially this is a post about how to modify different typical gym exercises at home. We love that. I actually just made a whole video about that. Unfortunately, there are a few swaps in here that I just don't think quite make sense, and I want to explain it to you. So the first one are these half kneeling cable shoulder pulls. And then you can read the description if you want, but essentially half kneeling cable shoulder pulls. So I'm assuming that's like a half kneeling, single arm pull down. If that's what this person is talking about, then the main muscles that we're trying to target here are going to be the lats, as well as maybe some rhomboid, some mid and low trap, maybe a little bit of bicep, basically the back of the body. But if you're simply doing an overhead press at an angle, we're not really able to tap into the back of the body too much. This is more so targeting the anterior delt or the front of your shoulder. The reason for this is gravity. basically where the pull of resistance is. The pull of resistance is going to be down unless you have a cable machine where now the resistance is away from you. Now, to be fair, you might feel some lat helping to stabilize the scapula, but I would think that something like if you want a single arm overhead, like vertical pull, I would go for like a single arm lat pullover instead. But if you don't really care what type of pull it is, like vertical or horizontal, you can also do like a single arm bent over row, and you can load that up a lot more. All right, skipping ahead to the rower, and I am assuming she means like a row, like a rowerg, like a, like the machine. So when you're at a rowing machine, a lot of people think that it's going to be like really upper body heavy, but it's actually not. And that's due to the kind of the sequence of events. So when you're rowing, the first thing to push you back is actually your legs. Then you're going to pull with your arms and tap right under the chest. Then arms come back out, then legs. So any resistance that's really going on is going to be loaded through the legs because that handle weighs like nothing. So sitting and just kind of like reaching forward and then pulling back 5-pound dumbbells, you're really not loading the legs at all, so it's going to be a different exercise. You're really just getting like a little core, little hip flexor, little front delt because of gravity. I would say if you want the explosive power of like a rower at home, you're better off doing some swings, maybe even like a power step up would be a good option. But I think the point that we're kind of missing here is we need to think about like what is the prime mover, what is really being loaded in these movement patterns, because even though it might look the same in terms of like what your body's doing, it's not necessarily going to elicit the same response because you're not doing it with a machine that alters where gravity is pulling. And then finally is this lateral elbow abduction. I don't really know what machine that is, but if we're thinking, I think it's like one of like these machines because that's what she's doing, right? So if we're thinking abduction, that means going out or away. So that tells me that the weight, you see I'm figuring this out in my head, that tells me that the weight is going to be, or the resistance is going to be on abduction. So that means that most of the work is going to be in the back. Primarily there, I'm thinking a lot of rhomboid, maybe like some posterior delt too. We can put that in there. So once again, like, yeah, we're just not loaded correctly. This with free weights is going to be all shoulder. You might feel a little bicep stabilizing because you've got that half bend in the elbow. I would say at home, if you want to target more of the back of the body, whether it's the rhomboids or the posterior delt, you're better off doing like a wide row or like a rear delt fly. This video isn't super egregious, and I'm sure that this person means well, but it's also just like pretty basic biomechanics and like how gravity affects things. So we are going to swipe left on this. But I think it was a good teaching moment for all of us. Ew. Okay. Trying to explain to all the women to do these ab exercises instead of floor crunches to get rid of that fupa. Yikes. Okay. So we have like the trifecta of red flags right here. We have a male trainer preying on women's insecurities. We have spot reduction nonsense, and we have the use of the word fupa like it's 2012. We love it. But yeah, this gets even more egregious when you go into his pinned comment because rightfully so, this man was getting a lot of hate. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but there is a part that made me go, sir. Hey everyone, I just wanted to share something close to my heart. Over the last 5 years, I've dedicated myself to truly understanding the female body. When I first started coaching online, I noticed that my videos were resonating with a lot of women, and I took it as a sign from God to dive deeper into how I could truly help. A sign from God. All right, not to offend anyone, but this is reason like 875 why I'm not religious. But you spend all this time learning about the female body because God told you to. Okay. If you actually did that, you would realize that with the science and the studies that we have right now, there are really not many differences in terms of training and eliciting certain adaptations like trying to get rid of a fupa between men and women. I actually already made an entire video about what the current research shows us in terms of training differences for men and women. So if you want to go check that out, you can. But in the meantime, we are going to swipe left on this man.
Marathon training is not the time for a weight loss journey. Here's the thing, training for a marathon requires your body to be not only fed, but well fed with an emphasis on carbohydrates. And losing weight requires you to be in a caloric deficit. Hear me when I say this, there is nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight. But if you're using marathon training as a tool to get there, you're setting yourself up for the perfect storm of misery and burnout and injury, and worst of all, a pretty shitty relationship with running. During a marathon training block, some bodies will lose weight, some bodies will gain weight, some bodies will maintain weight, but the focus should never be on being in a deficit when you are training for a marathon. If you have body composition goals, I would take a season or two, or however many, off from training for a marathon.
So you might recognize Amanda from a pretty old video at this point where I hired a run coach, and that was Amanda. This was before my running era, before my 2 or 3 different running eras. So Amanda's a run coach in New York City. She has so much incredible knowledge, not only from coaching other people, but also from her own experience. I wanted to put this in here because something that I have really had to learn as a beginner runner is that fueling, especially if you are trying to perform well at longer distances, is so important. It's been really interesting to see, especially now as I'm training for a 10 miler. So like the difference between a 10 miler versus like my last goal was a 10K, so about 6 miles. It's been really interesting to see how much I've had to shift the focus in my diet from like protein forward to really more heavily carbohydrate forward. And I have definitely noticed like feeling a little bit puffier here and there. That could also be due to like 1,000 other things, but we'll save that for a different video. But on the flip side, my performance has been so strong in my runs, especially on my long runs. So I do agree with Amanda here. Like if you are training for longer distances that are maybe more of a reach for you, right? Like someone who's a marathoner, they could probably just go out and run 10 miles tomorrow and be completely fine and not really have to think about fueling. For me, someone whose aerobic base is not as strong, whose tissue tolerance is not that high, who just mentally is like not used to running for that far and that long, yeah, fueling is going to make a huge difference. So just like Amanda said, I don't think that weight loss is a bad goal. I just think that having weight loss as a main goal at the same time as a performance goal is really tricky, and I don't recommend it. So we are going to swipe right on this content, and we are going to read this one. The future of healthcare looks like a gym. It shouldn't look like a spa. 75% of adults are physically inactive. 80% of the world is dying from chronic diseases related to lifestyle factors. The health and wellness industry has expanded to a $6.3 trillion, yet we haven't made a dent in chronic disease. No amount of sauna, cold plunge, and IVs are going to make up for a lack of strength and aerobic training in your life. Preach. Okay, there's 2 things that I really want to drill home here. Most, if anyone here has ever been to outpatient PT, you've more than likely been to a facility that has carpeted floors, has a bunch of like massage beds, massage tables laying out, and there's maybe one corner with some mirrors, some dumbbells, some resistance bands, maybe some Bosu balls, and halfway through your session with your PT, you're passed off to an assistant because your PT has to triple book people to actually make any money. America! But yeah, I think that is probably the most like common PT experience and has been a lot of mine. I don't blame physical therapists. I blame the way that our healthcare system is set up. My mom, until she retired, was a physical therapist. Literally her least favorite part of it was the paperwork and like dealing with insurance. I actually too, side note, and fun fact for everybody, my first major in college was physical therapy. I was in a 6-year doctorate program, but I remember when I was deciding what I wanted to do at the same time as that, the new big thing was the 6-year pharmacy or like pharmacist program. And I remember starting salaries for PTs when I graduated from high school, which was 2007. Yeah. Between $60,000 and $70,000 a year. But for pharmacists, it was like $300,000 a year. And my dad was like, why aren't you going into that? And I was like, that sounds so boring. I don't want to play with pills all day. And I stand by that statement. You can see the disconnect in where the money is in our healthcare system, right? So anyway, yeah, like to make good enough money, you got to stack people on top of each other, unfortunately, in a lot of these outpatient facilities if you deal with insurance. This is one of the reasons why you see a lot of physical therapists moving away from insurance. My physical therapist, who I did an entire video with, he does not accept insurance. The reason that he explained it to me was like, number one, it's a pain in the dick. But number two, a lot of what he does is like looking at your whole system, not just like where you're having pain. So if you get a referral from your doctor for knee pain to go get treated at a physical therapist, but then it turns out, oh, your gait is off and it's actually your ankle or maybe it's your shoulder that's causing compensation that's resulting in knee pain, can't treat your shoulder or your ankle. You would have to pay for that. And obviously there's like ways around it and whatever. And like, I don't know enough about coding and things like that. If you want to go on a tangent and educate me and everybody else in the comments, you can, but you get the idea. It's all kind of backwards. And it's all backwards because it's for profit. But yeah, the other thing that I like that Andy said here at the end is like these quick fixes, saunas, IVs, cold plunges, they're all great things and have a time and a place, but they are not going to fix the root cause of the fact that we don't have enough of a push on having strength, enough of a push on getting your heart rate up during the week. A lot of that is because our society is not necessarily set up for that. But unfortunately, what you hear so much about, especially more in the wellness space, is all of these things, is all of these supplements and IVs and like different procedures. And really what most of us just need is 2 to 3 days of strength training a week and getting your heart rate up in some form of cardio. We would see chronic illness plummet in this country, mark my words, if those things were more accessible with money, more accessible with time, and more accessible within our healthcare system. So we are swiping right on this. End rant. Let's keep going. Ladder strikes again. Unpopular opinion, but you don't need Ozempic, peptides, or other weight loss quick fixes. You need consistency. Let me show you how. At first glance, you might be like, this isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. And okay, sure. I think, though, we are at a point where shaming someone for taking Ozempic is just close-minded. And also, no offense, like none of your business. I have a client who is on a weight loss drug that has been prescribed by her doctor. And instead of shaming her about it, I've taken in that information and I've educated this client on, hey, okay, so you're going to be losing weight fairly rapidly. Here's what we want to do to preserve your muscle mass. I want you to make sure that under the supervision of your doctor, if this is okay with them, you are eating X amount of protein to help maintain that muscle mass. And I would love to be kept up on anything that your doctor says, as well as any side effects from the medication that you're having. That's how you actually support your clients, not by telling them that they are choosing a quick fix and they're bad for doing that. You just need to be consistent. That's not what a coach does. That's what a bully does. We're swiping left. Give me love. You seem happier. Thanks. I stopped trying to weigh the same as I did when I was 17. Oof, that hits. So when people come to me with a weight loss goal, I typically just poke a little bit and I ask them, what's so important about that specific number? Is that the number you weighed when you looked the best in your opinion? Is that something that your doctor gave you? Like, what's the history with that specific number? And sometimes people will go, oh, well, it's actually not the number. I just kind of like pick that because that's, in a healthy range for me. But I really care about how my clothes fit. Can I play with my kids? Having more confidence, feeling better, whatever. Sometimes the number is important, and there could be a host of different reasons, but one of the reasons I get a lot when the number is important is that this is the weight that I weighed when I looked my best. I ask again, how old were you? Quite often, it's either from teens or very early 20s. I think, and I'm not even going to just say this about women because, I think my husband in a few different videos when I've had him on has talked about his own struggles with like his body image and his weight from when he was younger versus now and his body changes. But like, we have to accept the fact that like our bodies age and our bodies change over time. Some people age differently than others due to lifestyle choices or genetics. But especially right now, I think we're living in a time of like anti-aging. Like if you age, that's bad. If your face moves, if you can show emotions and expression, that's bad. That's a side tangent, but I think a lot of it is tied together. I think the easiest way to say this is like, why do you want to look like a child? I kind of got off my script and I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I think it's all just good food for thought. Maybe something better qualified for a therapist to talk to you about. But yeah, I think if you have a goal number in mind, I think number one, it's a little bit more feasible to maybe think of that as a range instead. And number two, I think it's helpful, like maybe like a little journaling prompt, just like really dive into why that number is so important. But anyway, we're going to swipe right. That was fun. Let's keep it going.
My workouts are not for the girlies who want to get jacked. I'm warning you now, my program is not going to be for you, girl, if you want to bench or do a Hulk Hogan 1 rep max. R.I.P. Hulk. My workouts are for the girlies who want a big bottom Pilates top, nothing more, nothing less. Why structure 3-2-1 so we can heavily target lower body and slim that gut, sister. Don't say I didn't warn you when you try out your free 7-day trial.
First of all, I think I missed the RIP Hulk the first time I watched this through. Holy yikes, girlfriend. Okay. Second of all, is this AI? I haven't recovered yet. No, like literally, is this AI or is this just like a heavy filter? There's something very uncanny valley about this. Like it's giving like Polar Express vibes, you know? Anyway, I've talked about this before. I find this trend of coaches telling women to ignore their upper body for aesthetic reasons to be so irresponsible. It really drives me up a wall. Because here's the thing, like you can want any aesthetic goal. Like if you want your arms to be teeny, teeny, tiny, more power to you. I do believe in bodily autonomy. I also believe as a coach, you have a job to educate people and educate people on the risks of not training your upper body. If you have low bone density and no muscle mass in your upper body and you trip and fall, you're going to break your fucking arm. Is that worth it? Maybe it is. But I think to not lay out the pros and cons, like here, I'm going to lay out the pros and cons of lifting weights. Pros, you won't break your fucking arm probably. Con, you might look like me, and apparently I look like Hulk Hogan. Swipe left.
I'm about to offend some people, but I don't care. I do it in love. If you look at any gym line, like especially for women, you look at any of their clothes for women who work out, everything is tight fitted. Everything is painted to the body. Have you ever tried to work out in loose sweats and a loose t-shirt? It's difficult, it's hot. The clothes that we wear to the gym, they are gym outfits. Leggings and a bra, leggings and a shirt, a tank top, whatever. It's gym wear. That hasn't changed for years. It is the culture, the society, and the people in our generation who have sexualized gym outfits that now have women getting dressed to go to the gym, sitting here like, oh, this is going to cause too much attention. Oh, this is going to draw too much attention towards me. Maybe I need to cover up. Maybe I need to put on a longer shirt. Maybe I should just put on some loose basketball shorts. Like, and it doesn't matter, okay? Honestly, if you see a woman doing squats, like her booty gonna be bootying, period. Let's adjust our mindsets to stop over sexualizing things that were never meant to be sexualized. I'm not trying to seduce you. Like, that's a you problem, and you're not gonna put that weight on us anymore. What's changed is this provocative generation who over sexualizes everything to the point where women don't even want to go to the gym. Do better.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't really have much to add. I just think we all needed to hear that. As long as you don't have like private parts hanging out and about, I don't see why it's a problem what someone else wears to the gym. If what someone's wearing is distracting you, it sounds like that's a you problem. It's just giving the same energy as like, boys will be boys. You can't wear your spaghetti strap because showing too much skin. What will the boys do? They can develop better coping mechanisms and understand how to feel their emotions without acting on them. We're going to swipe right.
I now realize that I have the ability to make people angry online by just running at a pace that they consider walking. And the truly ironic part of it all is that I'm actually running at the average pace for a woman. The average 5K time is around 37 minutes. It's not the 25 minutes you see online. So if the average pace isn't even good enough for people, then honestly, what is? To some degree, sports is becoming a bit more inclusive. But it's still a pretty competitive place, and finding a space within it for people like me who aren't the best but still want to show up can be incredibly tough. So welcome to my corner of the internet. I always try to make running inclusive but also accessible for people, because isn't the goal to get more people moving and feeling good?
Isn't the goal to get more people moving and feeling good? Unfortunately, no. It should be, but this is not the current goal that I see in healthcare, at least in the US. I also don't see it as the goal a lot in coaching or in the wellness industry. Healthcare in this country is for profit. We've already touched on that. So if you're moving and you're feeling good, they don't profit. I'm probably being a little too hard on coaches here, but you see a lot nowadays of people selling programs online or coaching people online who have never trained or coached anybody besides themselves and have zero formal education. And the wellness industry is its whole other thing because they have people promoting anything besides actually training. Just become all affiliate links for shitty supplements and AG1 ads. To quote my coach, training is healthcare, but we live in a capitalist hellhole where we can't have nice things. We're going to swipe right. And we have one, I was going to cap it at 10. We have one final late edition because I came across this yesterday on the Petite Fitness Reddit, which I've made a whole video about. I've talked about training for short women, but I was like, holy shit. I need to include this somewhere because this is actually insane. This is actually from someone who joined April Whitney's coaching services and has some feedback. April Whitney is the founder of Petite Power, which is a training and nutrition program specifically geared toward petite women because petites apparently are completely different from non-petites. Who knew? So you can see the first thing here. The title says Petite Power April v. Whitney feels scammy. And then here is a page from, I guess, like a recipe book. And it's an RX bar melt. And it's just an RX bar of choice. And then you melt it in the microwave for 12 seconds. And that's the recipe. And keep in mind, like, this is what someone paid for. Hi, I've been following April for a few months and decided to apply for my free consultation. She had me explain my history and stats, then gave me more info about what they could provide, then asked me if I'm ready to fully invest to see the changes I want to see. I was like, yeah, but like how much? And she's like, well, let's schedule a second call tomorrow and I'll tell you, but you have to pay $97 to show that you're dedicated. With $97, you secure your spot, you receive recipes, and receive the price info. Here's the thing. I will give it to April for offering free consultations. I guess I do. Like if someone comes off basically I have a wait list for like one-on-one training. So if someone comes off my wait list, I offer free consultations to make sure it's a good fit and like chat a little bit more. But I don't just like let anybody book a free consult with me. So props to her if she does do that. That's incredible. That being said, if you hide your pricing behind a paywall, that's incredibly scammy. That's incredibly unethical. Also, $97, that's wild. That like, this part alone had my jaw on the floor. Let's keep reading. Well, in that moment, I knew I should spend that money, but I felt really trapped on the Zoom call, so I paid for it. I had to fill out a survey that would supposedly help our next call and answer the same questions that I answered on the call about my goals, what I like to eat, and how much I like to work out. Then the call came again, and it felt very repetitive. We talked about the same thing that we did in the first meeting, and we talked about the same questions that were on the survey. And then it felt like she was really emphasizing that I needed professional help because I couldn't do this on my own, which I admitted myself, but it was really emphasized. And then we finally got down to the price, and she wanted to ensure that I was really invested, and she said it was $3,900 plus $49 monthly fee. And I figured all of that up, and it would be $1,010 a month for the 16-week obligation that we are looking at. Insane. And I told her so. It's basically like paying double rent for me. Her reply was that she wouldn't want me to lose my home over this, but maybe I can reevaluate my finances to really make this work if I'm truly dedicated. She offered a pared down version that includes a workout app and recipes minus a dedicated nutritionist for $130 a month. I already have a workout app that I paid $10 for, so I don't feel like a self-guided app warrants that cost at all. Maybe I'm not dedicated, but it just felt really scammy. This is my warning to you. Also, the recipes I essentially paid $97 for are trash. Here's one. Not only is that price tag insane. And then you can go read the thread if it's still up. There's a lot of comments underneath that are just like, yeah, and I paid this and it's not even worth it. But I want to tell you guys that this is not normal. Don't let yourself this literally is like, as someone who doesn't do well when like authority starts to push me or like get angry with me, this would send me into like a nervous spiral. Literally like guilting someone into being like, you need professional help. You're just not dedicated enough if you don't want to take out a second mortgage on your home. That is insane. So if we learned anything from this, red flags, charging someone before you even release the cost of your services, pressuring someone into refinancing their life to afford your services, and I don't know, including a recipe that is just melting an RX bar. We're going to swipe left. Okay. We have the final votes. So here's what I'm going to do. I can only have 4 options in a poll. So I'm just going to take 2 out right now. We're going to take out number 5 and number 7, only because they were lower effort pieces of content, meaning it's just kind of like a clip of something with some words on top. Still incredible messaging though. So let's rewatch our final 4 choices.
Marathon training is not the time for a weight loss journey.
The clothes that we wear to the gym, they are gym outfits.
I now realize that I have the ability to make people angry online by just running at a pace that they consider walking.
So if you want to vote for the winner of this month's, I don't know what we're calling this, like best piece of content that we saw on the internet, yay! All you have to do is go over to the community tab. You will see a post right there, and you just get to click on whatever video you liked the best. As always, if you come across a piece of content that you think would be a great inclusion for this video, feel free to send it over to me. The best way to do that is over on Instagram via my DMs. Do not DM me on TikTok because it's a bunch of creepy men in there and I don't check those. videos. And as always, if you have not yet hit that subscribe button, please do so you don't miss out on future videos, and I will see you all in the next one.